It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in. It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Happy to be with you on the final Thursday of September. I'm Jeff Parles. Vinny Magliulo alongside. Hello.
What do you say, buddy? How are you?
We're in a happy mood today. There's
There's
football
football
back on the air. We're back on the air here at the South Point Studio. All right, Vinny. Let's get into it. First off, Monday night doubleheader. As always, great action-wise for you guys, I would imagine.
Monday, yeah. I mean,
Monday
and got the split that we need.
Yeah.
Even though the Bengal game fell 3, with the Bengals winning. Again, just to recount that, what it means is anything taken at 3 gets refunded. Everything either plus 3.5 or which we didn't. I don't think we went to 3. Well, there was some early actually. Because on Sunday night when the Bengals were 6. So paid both sides of the 3 and gave all the 3s back so people could reload for tonight.
Eagles easy cover on Monday as well.
Yeah.
Let's get right to it. Thursday night football, Lambeau Field, the site tonight for the Packers and the Lions. Both of these teams coming in at 2-1 on the year. Very interesting paths to get here to 2-1 for these teams. Green Bay, a pretty epic comeback last week in the fourth quarter, down 17-0.
Right.
Derek Carr left the game with the AC injury. New Orleans went super conservative with Jameis Winston in there, and Green Bay took full advantage with 18 fourth-quarter points to win that game after winning week 1 against the Bears, where everyone may beat up on the Bears this year. We'll get to them a little bit later in possibly the worst game of the first 4 weeks of the NFL season. And Detroit, it didn't matter the injuries. They handled their business. Clearly the better team last week against Atlanta, bouncing back off of their loss to Seattle in week 2. Vinny, as we look at this game, total 45 at the moment. Detroit up to a 2-point favorite.
Yep, open 1.5 again Sunday night. The NFL goes up here at South Point on Sunday night, Jeff. They initially took the Packers on Sunday night, so it went down to 1, back to 1.5, and now 2. As you mentioned, it's been pretty consistent Lion money in the last 24 hours. You mentioned the total 44.5 on the opener. Got as high as 46, came back down. So two-way action on the total. A couple of injury reports. Looks like David Montgomery is going to go for the Lions tonight, and the Packers should get Aaron Jones back in their offensive backfield, and looks like Christian Watson I think is probable too. So both teams getting some bodies back on a short week, but of course they didn't play last week, so they've had a week and a half to heal. So that's where we're at on this game right now, and terrific. I think it's going to be a lot of good betting. $1.35 though on the money line for the Lions tonight.
Detroit has not been favored in Green Bay in a very long time.
Well, in the Rodgers era, pretty much.
Well, Rodgers, Favre,
right? And Favre,
pre-Brett Favre,
forever.
basically. Yeah, it's been
You were what? You were in what? 4th grade?
I think it's 92. I don't think I was born yet. I think 92 was the last time.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, sorry, Vinny.
There's always subliminal age references on this program. Do you notice that, Ann?
Oh, actually, I shortchanged it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Were you born? Just tell me you were born.
I was not.
Jeez.
I shortchanged it. 1986.
Oh.
The last time the Detroit Lions were favored in Green Bay. The Lions were 2.5-point favorites on that day in 1986.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Speak up. I can't hear you.
You sure about that? You sure about that, there, Vinny?
Age.
No, it's interesting to see how this all goes out with tonight, because you mentioned it. Green Bay battled all those injuries a week ago and still found a way to win. Jaire Alexander on the defensive side of the ball, questionable. We'll get inactives in about 40 minutes, so we'll have a better sense of it then. Bakhtiari's not going to play. Devondre Campbell's not going to play. Aaron Jones and Christian Watson, last checked, questionable for tonight.
Looks like I think they're leaning more towards going. We should. What time are the inactives?
But usually about an hour and 40 minutes before game time.
So again, pay attention to that, folks. Pay attention to the injury reports, the actives and inactives. That's what we watch as well. And then there'll be a flurry, depending on what those inactives say. Not a real surprise, right, that the Lions are 2-1. There was a lot of support for the Lions all summer long and going into the season, during the preseason. Probably a surprise that the Packers are in the position they're in, right? It thought to be between the Lions and the Vikings. I know we'll get to the Vikings in a little bit. But there was also high hopes, and anticipation for the Bears. I think people there were some folks that felt that the Packers would be the fourth team in the division, Jeff, and it may still happen. Listen, after only 3 games. However, I think the surprise here is that both of these two teams sit at 2-1 and are vying for the first place position in the division. And the other two teams that we talked about, the Vikings and the Bears, are winless.
I don't think Chicago's finishing ahead of anyone in that division this year,
unless
Minnesota decides. And look, Minnesota has in a battle of 0-3s this week. We may not get Minnesota all the NFL games today, but we will. Trust me, we'll get them all tomorrow, and we'll get them all on Sunday here on the show. Minnesota's in a spot here where if they lose in Charlotte to Carolina this week, they're done. 0-4, you are totally and completely and utterly toast. It may be the opportunity if there is a desperate team enough that wears green and white that plays in East Rutherford, New Jersey, that might end up trying to trade for Kirk Cousins in a few.
Trevor Simeon's not going to get it done. You don't have any faith. By the way, you mentioned the Vikings. They opened 3, up to 5.
I think a
lot of support to your thoughts, or at least the mindset of the public right now.
I will say, I think Minnesota and look, Survivor. I know Survivor pools are very popular right now, and it was a bloodbath in Survivor pools a week ago with Kansas City. Kansas City basically being the only big favorite on Sunday, not losing outright. San Francisco won as a double-digit favorite on Thursday. But I have a feeling that people are going to use Minnesota this week in Survivor on the road in Carolina, which I'll say is good luck. Good luck if you decide to do that.
I would probably go to communion twice if you're going to do that. So,
no, I would agree on that. All right, let's hit 2 more NFL games here, Vinny, that I want to at least get to because they are big ones, and you guys are also the market high on this one, and it's in Western New York. The AFC East matchup between Miami and Buffalo. Miami, of course, coming off scoring 70 on Sunday against Denver.
Did they just score
before we came on? Again. But Miami's 3-0. Buffalo is 2-1, and let's face it, Vinny, probably should be 3-0. A game on that Monday night in East Rutherford, they should have won, especially after the Rodgers injury happened. And Vinny, this opened 2.5 for you guys. Up to 3 now. You're the only 3 flat in the market on the Miami Dolphins right now. If you want to take the 3 with Miami. Total 53.5. Vinny, this is, at least from a handicapper's perspective, and I'll bring on my thoughts after I hear yours here. It is a fascinating spot here for the Dolphins coming off just whipping the Broncos in the fashion that they did.
Yeah, this what's interesting, too, about this game, typically you see this game in Miami this time of year, right, where there's a bit more humidity and it's hotter, but then the Bills get some revenge. Later in the season, typically Miami's had to go up to Buffalo and play in the snow, which they've performed pretty well in recent years, right?
Games last year.
So, but you look at this game, highest total on the board as well, 53.5, which is where we opened. It did get as high as 54.5. No real surprise, given both of these teams able to score. You mentioned the Bills; they probably should have beaten the Jets. Jets made a terrific, had a terrific defensive game that night. A miraculous catch. Their touchdown was a terrific catch as well.
And special teams.
And special teams to win it, right? Look, the thing about it is the Dolphins, they scored 70 last week without Waddle, and he's probable this week.
He's going to play. He's out of protocol now.
Just what the Bills wanted to hear. But the Bills, listen, this is going to be the best defense that the Dolphins have faced in the young season, right?
Buffalo's defense is better than New England's, yes.
So that people don't really talk about the Bills, but watch the Bills. The Bills' defense is better, and I think their running game is better. So it's going to be interesting to see here. However, we talked about it last week, Jeff. Here's the thing about Miami. Whether they play a great defensive game or not with and I think there's still a lot of things and tweaking to be done by Vic Fangio, their new defensive coordinator. The fact that they can score as quickly as they can, they're never out of a game. I mean, we saw this last year.
Yeah.
A great example was the Ravens game a year ago, where they were down two or three touchdowns.
They were down 21
in the second half.
They were down 21 in
three
the fourth
touchdowns
quarter.
and late and they came back and won the game. So the fact that that's what makes them so dangerous. And again, this is certainly the game. The game is at 10:00. You're probably thinking, I wish it was the primetime game. I mean, there's no flexing at this time of year just yet. However, the fact that it's early, I'll tell you this is still going to be one of the higher handle games. Typically, the afternoon games and the primetime games are the higher handle games. Everybody's going to get involved in this game from a point spread standpoint, a money line standpoint, and both teams drawing teaser money.
All I'll say here is there's two trains of thought for me in this game.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best team Miami has played by a pretty significant margin through the first 3 weeks.
So far, yeah.
They handled Buffalo pretty well last year. They beat them in South Florida in that weird game where Buffalo had 500 yards but still found a way to lose. And they lost by a field goal in both the games.
By the way, they lost that game on the last
play of the game.
Last play of the game.
Yeah, they didn't get a playoff.
Yeah. Ran out of timeouts. Yeah.
Miami lost on a last-second field goal in Buffalo in December, and then with Skylar Thompson almost pulled off the big upset in the postseason. And then on the flip side, for Buffalo, all you've been hearing about all offseason was the Jets and Miami.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets already beat them without Aaron Rodgers after the 4 plays.
Mm-hmm.
You really want to go to 0-2 in the division with both the teams everyone was talking up to be better than you, beating you, and proving, hey, that narrative might have been right that Buffalo is not the king of this division anymore.
Maybe.
The only thing I will say is Buffalo's defense, Vinny, over this run, since they've gotten good starting in the pandemic, really 2020, more so than 2019, even though, yes, they were a playoff team that year. That defense has feasted on horrible offenses. They've destroyed bad offenses. Against good offenses, they've had their fair share of struggles. So I'm just curious if Miami runs it on them and wins this game outright as a 3-point dog, if that's not the conversation of, all right, Buffalo's defense is just a bully, not a truly elite defense.
Well, it's also a 2-game difference, right? Because it's head-to-head. Let's face it.
And it would be 4-0 against 2-2
against 2-2. So you've got that. But again, add another game because of the tiebreaker. 2.5.
Okay, yeah.
So I mean, again, I think the difference with this Bills, and I'm not saying the Bills are going to win by any means. What I'm saying though is their ability to run as good as the Bills are offensively as well, Joe. I don't think they want to get into a track meet with the Dolphins. Right?
You shouldn't.
And the fact that they can run the ball better this year, okay, I think that's something that they want to try to at least try in the game. So, but again, this is the most attractive, the marquee matchup of Sunday, and it's going to be a fun game to book. I know that. It's great. The action's going to be off the chart.
It'll be a fun game to watch.
It's a fantasy player's
dream,
right?
Yeah.
You do fantasy?
I do, but I hate it.
It's torture.
I hate fantasy football.
Yeah,
so
there's nothing like rooting for a wide receiver to get in the end zone for 10 points. Try doing it. Try having that go for you, and then you need the other side for 50,000.
It's not
good.
I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah,
I claimed for 3 years now is going to be the last year. I think this year will be the last year, especially with how bad both of my teams are going into the year. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, a monumental trade in the NBA yesterday, and boy, the markets moved in the future book in the NBA because of it. We'll tell you about the impact of the Damian Lillard trade when we come back. Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. Welcome back in at Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Vinny Magliulo, Gone Gaming, sports betting Hall of Famer.
Here we go, buddy.
40-plus years in Nevada of experience behind the counter.
I'm in my 46th.
46.
Here in
so I can
Las
I can now say 45-plus.
45-plus, yeah. That's
45-plus
right.
for Vinny. And I'm not going to forget the years growing up in Long Island. Not going to forget those.
But you have to add some. I mean,
got to add some there.
Add some, a little bit of Brooklyn and Nassau and Suffolk County action.
Vinny, let's take a quick little detour to the NBA here. Also, throughout the show next week, we'll be detouring to baseball because the playoffs start next Tuesday. Fun race going on right now in the AL wild card right now is the biggest race, with Seattle trying to catch Houston and Toronto. Seattle really blowing a good opportunity through the week against the Astros and blowing an opportunity last week against Texas. Texas looks to close out the division tonight in Seattle. But looking at the NBA real quick, because there was a lot of movement in the futures market yesterday, Vinny, where the assumption was all offseason that Damian Lillard was going to find a way to go to Miami. That's what it was going to be, even though the Heat couldn't offer the best package, that Miami, a third team, and Portland were going to find a way to get this done.
They were talking about this at the trade deadline last year, too, right?
Yeah, it's been going on for a long time.
Yep.
And that's not what happened here.
No.
The Milwaukee Bucks come on in.
The third team became the only team.
Yes. The Milwaukee Bucks come on in, and they get their guy. Damian Lillard will go to the Bucks. Trade announced late Wednesday night. Portland coming back to them will be Drew Holiday. So that's the biggest piece that leaves the Bucks. DeAndre Ayton, because the Suns are the third team in this deal. Some guy named Kamara with a C. I don't know who that is. Milwaukee's unprotected 2029 first-round pick. See, we're already doing picks in 2029, Vinny. And unprotected Milwaukee swap rights for their first-round pick in 28 and 30. See, 2030 also, Vinny. And then the Suns, on the flip side, get Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson back. Really just a salary dump to get Aiden the heck out of town for the Suns. And, Vinny, everyone say, all right, the odds are going to shift on Milwaukee here, and they sure did. We'll get to those in a second. But they also shifted on some other teams that were not involved in this deal because of this deal.
Yep. So I think the most surprising part was Ayton moving for me. Just looking at it, I thought he was a key component for the Suns, and if they didn't get, I don't know if they really got what. It's more of a long-term deal for them, right? You mentioned all the picks involved and everything. But that said, the Bucks. I'm sure you would have liked to 24 hours ago or 36 hours ago have had a ticket on the Bucks at 7-1.
Great ticket if you got it.
If they are now the favorite at 7-2.
That's
to
plus
win
three. That's
plus 350. Yep,
plus
3.5 to 1. The Suns up to 13-2 from 9-1.
Plus 650.
The Warriors separate. I mean, I'm just looking at the teams that's odds have changed. Okay, because and again, impactful because there's other. The teams in the conferences and things like that down to 8-1, believe it or not. But the you mentioned the Miami Heat from 15 up to 25 now.
See, that's the most interesting part of this whole thing to me, and it makes sense because
they didn't get their guy
right built into the Miami number. And there were books that also moved it more aggressively than you guys did as well, Vinny.
But there was money on them, too, though, because of the anticipation they were going to be the ones to get him.
Correct. And the way that I look at Miami, where if they got Damian Lillard, I would have had them as the best team in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. And the favorites to get back to the finals for the second straight year. Now, Milwaukee's pretty clearly better than everyone else in that conference, assuming that health is equal. Yeah, you lose your best.
Celtics are 5-1.
Yeah, I don't.
But that's not a shock, right?
Yeah, I don't buy Boston.
I don't know if there's. I don't know, chemistry issues maybe.
I don't think they're that good. I think that's the bigger issue.
Okay,
with Boston.
They'll probably continue to rise.
Well, and then once they hit, I would say probably 8-1, people come in and bet them.
That'll
be my guess.
Yeah, they'll play them, and then they'll make their second half run, right?
Yeah, and then they'll be the 2 seed in the East, and they'll find a way to lose.
By the way, the Blazers just sent the
Blazers are now
400.
That's it,
and climbing.
That's it.
Oh, how much you want? What do you want? A little
side action? Even if
what would you get involved with?
A lot more zeros than that.
Sounds like I'm trying to sell him a Buick.
No, all I'm going to say is no, thank you. Okay. No, thank you on that. There's no way. There's no way. Vinny, did you guys have in-season tournament group numbers yet, or is that coming a little bit later?
A little bit later.
Okay.
We did have regular season wins, and we bumped the Bucks up a couple of games from 52.5 up to 54.5.
Okay.
I mean the Blazers were low anyway at 23.5 because the anticipation was that he was not going to be there.
Right. Or if he was going to be there on opening day, he's not going to be there for.
He's not going to be there for the season.
Yeah.
So
And did Phoenix? You move Phoenix at all or no?
Phoenix. No, about they bet them over 50.5 already. So
okay, it's interesting with this for me with Phoenix, where the Western Conference, Denver's not as good as they were a year ago. They lost a few key pieces. Brown, really the key piece that they lost in free agency to Indiana. Memphis is going to be able without Ja for a good chunk of the regular season because of suspension. The Suns are very top heavy, even though I think they've had a pretty nice offseason building out their depth. A lot better than I would have expected. Golden State is old. Lakers are old. The Clippers are injury riddled, at least injury riddled potential for the Clippers. Feels like the West is pretty wide open, all things considered, even with the defending champs out there.
West was best for quite a while.
Still
right?
is.
And, probably overall. Yeah. By the way, the Heat lowered from 48.5 to 45.5.
Oh, that's the biggest. That's the biggest. That's move the biggest of all move.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like that over now at 45.5.
There you go, buddy. See? I can't get you to bite on the Portland future, but maybe there's always something. There's always something we can capture your attention with.
Absolutely. One other thing, Vinny, on the NBA, where, of course, obviously, season opens when the World Series is going on. Hockey season will have started for probably about 5 to 6 days before the NFL and college football in full swing. Obviously, when do the bettors usually turn their attention fully to the NBA? Not the sharp NBA bettors that are betting you on a nightly basis.
Because there are folks that focus on the NBA. There are folks that focus on every sport, right? But as far the NBA, well, let's back up. October is going to be one of the busiest, the highest volume betting months of the year for the reasons you just mentioned, right? The betting menu is exceptional. Plus, we've got South Point 400 that's here in town. So one of the bigger NASCAR events for us from a betting perspective. The NBA Plus from a cross section, right? For the most demographics is after football ends. That's when NBA becomes front and center. So right after the Super Bowl, Jeff, it's way before the playoffs. But once there's football is done, obviously the national championship in college football is determined. Once the Super Bowl is over, it's all about the NBA and college basketball over the winter. Now, as you mentioned, there are folks that zero in on them. There are professionals that bet college basketball, especially in those first few weeks before conference play starts, and professionals that bet the NBA as well, especially NBA totals. So, but as far as the most diverse demographic mix of bettors for the NBA, it will occur right after the Super Bowl.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. For what it's worth, Vinny,
Mm-hmm.
last NBA season, I placed a grand total of 7 regular season NBA bets, and 4 of them were on Christmas.
Okay, because that was the focus. Now this year, here's the interesting thing, right? There's three NFL games on Christmas Day this year.
Yeah.
So
2 of them look pretty brutal right now, to be honest with you.
Well, it's still
the NFL.
There's still the point spread element. How many did you make during the playoffs? Probably a lot more.
No, I not many.
No?
Not many. Probably doubled the total, but that's still pretty low. Granted, Vinny, I was completely out of commission for about a month. I had to get this thing going.
Well, we could have helped you out there.
Yeah. No, I was also in the land of your people as well. I was in Italy for a little bit.
Well, we're going to get to that. There's a lot.
Don't worry. We will get to what's going on in Italy, and of course, we already had a special this week, the Ryder Cup special available at South Point Studio on YouTube right now. If you want to check that out, we'll get to the Ryder Cup in a little bit. Starting overnight,
tonight
in the States,
tonight,
10:35 Pacific time for the start.
Right. So I'm going to eat dinner later tonight just to get in the mood. We eat late. We were over there. We eat late over there.
9:30.
That's right.
Yeah, there we go. Before we hit a break, though, Vinny, I want to bring this up. The game props tonight for the NFL game. I just want to bring this up real quick because we talk about this when the Super Bowl comes abound. Because inevitably people always bet this to the no because it's the plus price. And that's the three. Will either team score 3 straight times? Don't count your conversion, your PATs or your twos. No. Just field goal or touchdown.
Correct.
Or safety would count in that as well.
Or safety is in there. Yeah.
So will either team score 3 times straight? Yes, minus 165. No, plus 145. Vinny, people always gravitate to the no, despite the fact that the price is telling you what usually hits here.
Well, you also pay attention to how people bet it too, right? So, listen, look at last week. We talked about the Dolphin game earlier, right? There's more now. Not that there's more or as many 70-point games, but there are quite a few games, right? Like, look, that there are teams, a touchdown, a defensive touchdown, or a special teams play. An interception, whatever the case may be, a pick six, a scoop and six, a field goal. Yeah. So people like the pluses, Jeff, and that's how you make money too, right? If you spread out you don't have to win as many. You don't have to hit at 52.4%, like you're laying 11 at 10. When if you get enough props to come in at plus the money, right? So instead of 52%, maybe you could hit 30, depending on the size of the plus, maybe 35%. All right, but no, they still have to come in. I get it, but you get a little more bang for your buck in the eyes of some folks, and I think that's got a lot to do with the why they bet it that way.
Well, the other one too is the shortest touchdown of the game, the 1.5, which the under 1.5 minus 135 right now.
You get those quarterback sneaks. Right? If you're the Eagles, are you going to bet that in an Eagles game? You're going to bet that? I would. You bet the over in an Eagles game with
just lay the price,
right?
Just lay the price.
There you go.
I'm going to get the QB push.
There you go. That's it. Until they change it. Are you in favor of them changing that rule?
They shouldn't.
They should leave.
Stop the play.
That's all.
Stop. If you're the defense,
you know what's coming.
Them. You know what's coming. Put everyone in the box and stop it.
If they're playing rugby this down, you play rugby.
Yeah, 100%. Stop them.
There you go.
They should not.
All right.
No way.
I agree.
You and I are in agreement.
I agree.
100%. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, look at the Ryder Cup, again, starting overnight in the States.
Yep, updated prices. And also 3 college football games tonight.
All of these have been bet. Pretty nice amount that we'll get to
Good action.
When we come back. It's Sports by the Book at the South Point studio. Welcome back in Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Hello, everyone. Vinny Magliulo alongside. Happy to be with you as always. Thursday, the NFL, college football, and the biggest match play event of the year.
Ryder Cup Eve.
Ryder Cup Eve actually gets going 7 hours from now, Vinny. Yeah. Thank you, time change. Across in Rome, Italy.
You think they're going to eat a little bit?
On
this trip,
just a smidge. Oh man, what a sight for this one across in Rome. First time the Ryder Cup has ever been in Italy as well.
Yeah.
And Vinny, it's been all Euro action.
Oh my goodness. Here. I was talking to Chris Andrews, our director here, and I was like, we opened. Figure it's in Europe. They're probably going to bet the Euros. They tend to do quite well over there. No real surprise. And Chris he opened the USA favored because of anticipated American interest on the part of the bettors, and really a good American lineup. Opened so 3-way betting because it can end in a tie. Right, and if it ends in a tie, the
Americans
event,
retain.
Then yes. So the Europeans opened at plus $1.40, the Americans minus 130, and the tie at 12-1. Right now, Europe you have to lay 6-5. You got to put up $1.20 to win 100. USA plus a quarter. And the tie is up to 13 and climbing. Plus, there's you mentioned props on tonight's game. There are props here, so 3-way. That's the 3-way for the event. We've got 3 ways for the by day. You've got odds to who's gonna hoist the trophy, right? Now obviously if there's a tie, you have the ability to bet the tie. Americans were favored there, but it's been all about Europe, though. I mean, when you look at it, top rookie scorer, top European rookie. There's a lot of ways you turn these events into a bigger betting menu because people are going to watch it. They're going to gravitate to it. We're fortunate here again at South Point. We've got a 24-hour book, so we're staffed 24 hours. It's not just the kiosks. This being a 3-shift town, Las Vegas, you've got folks that get off on swing shift and graveyard, and they gravitate to the book, particularly for events like this. You see participation in we'll say off hours for the golf, for the majors, the golf majors, for tennis overseas, and for soccer. I mean, a lot of overnight action. So we'll see the same thing here, and it's a fun event. And looks like we're going to be patriotic rooters for this one from a business perspective.
The Americans have not won in Europe since 1993. I was alive.
You were. Were you alive for that one?
Barely.
Thanks.
But I was.
It's about time.
I was.
About time you showed up.
I was. 1993, they won in England at the Belfry. That was the last time that they won in Europe. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while since the Americans have won with that event in Europe. All right, let's go to some college football, Vinny. 3 games tonight. Not the greatest of matchups, but you know what? The bettors don't care. They're ready to bet everything here
Every
tonight.
game's got action.
Every game's got action. Let's start in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Western Kentucky hosting Middle Tennessee. Conference matchup. Pinballing all over the place, toggling all over the place, I should say.
Well, now we're toggling. It pinballed earlier. Western Kentucky 6. They took the 6. They took 5.5, went down to 5, and then they laid it all the way back up to 7. So now today, what we're seeing is laying Western Kentucky with the laying of 6.5 and taking back the 7. Total on the game. Not a lot of movement, Jeff. 60 was the opener. 60.5, 61. Certainly more action though on the side with this one, and again, as I mentioned, taking +7, laying 6.5 with the Hilltoppers.
I have no idea what to expect out of this game, personally. I understand why this has moved all over the map.
Well, yeah, and again, for us, listen, it's fine. There's 2-way action on the game, and when there's 2-way action, you just hope it doesn't fall on one of those numbers. But again, like we saw Monday night, if it does, it does, and on you go. There's enough games. I mean, so you got these 3 games and the NFL game tonight, which we'll get back to in a little bit between the Lions and Packers. But these 3 games tonight are drawing quite a bit of betting attention.
And the thing is, if these 3 games were on a regular Saturday, it would be mostly washed away in the.
They would get more
sharper action.
I will tell you that's a good point. If these were on this Saturday, right, Jeff, they would get more professional action. But tonight, it's professional as well as your casual fan. Why? Because they're tying them into parlays, right? Folks love the parlay cards, right, and the increased odds and things like that. And again, I'm not shilling that. I'm just saying people like it. And when they hit, that's fine. You know what? People like the idea. They like the toothpick for the lumberyard theory. You know what I mean? And every now and then they get a lumberyard. So that's okay.
Let's go to Tulsa, Oklahoma next.
Mm-hmm. There's a toggler.
Yes, this one is a toggler for sure. Temple at Tulsa, an AAC matchup tonight. Temple opened a 4-point dog, now 3.5, Vinny, and this has been 4, 3.5, 3, 3.5, 3, 3.5.
Yeah, it's all 3 and 3.5 here, Jeff. You mentioned it. We opened the colleges on Monday morning. Again, NFL here at South Point on Sunday night. College football on Monday morning. Tulsa 4. They took the 4. They took the 3.5, and then it's bounced back and forth between 3.5 and 3. All day long. So another game that's going back and forth here. Again, another one, not as much movement on this total either, just about a 0.5 point. We're sitting at 55.5 right now. So it's really hasn't moved that much.
I kind of like the Owls tonight.
plus the 3.5.
Yeah, again, the 4 wasn't there for that long.
No, so it was only on Monday morning.
Yeah, so I don't feel too badly about missing the best of the number on that because it just got gobbled up too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of these teams are any good. That's really the big thing here. And I'm getting over a field goal with the Owls. I would lean to the Owls tonight.
There you go.
And Temple's 2 losses are against Power 5 teams. The mighty Rutgers Scarlet Knights beat them by 29 points, and then Miami just whipped them last week.
They did. Yeah. So I think there were some higher hopes for Tulsa by some folks, right? Don't you? I mean, but I don't know. It's
Tulsa.
Again, some teams we really get caught up on teams that really benefited and did well as a result of the transfer portal. There's teams out there, Jeff, that have really the opposite has happened.
Right.
Oaks, we were talking about last week, right? Oak State is
they're a bad football team right now.
So that's another thing to pay attention to when it comes to taking a look at the effect of the transfer portal. Who has really benefited from it and who has really not? Who has suffered from it?
Tulsa's 2 losses this year, Vinny. They've been outscored 109-27. Washington and Oklahoma. So at least it's two top flight teams
and 2 high scoring teams.
Yes,
right.
Washington
2 teams
might have
that
the best
press
offense in football. Right
2
now.
teams that press the ball, no question.
Absolutely. Oklahoma. We'll get into this later this week. Oklahoma has a look ahead spot against Iowa State this week because they get Texas next week. Texas plays Kansas. We'll get those games tomorrow on the football. Kansas is getting bad in that game.
Both those teams undefeated, right? It doesn't sound like. Think about it.
Texas and Oklahoma are both. Yeah, and Texas. Texas looks like a legit top 5 team. Kansas, as you mentioned, 4-0.
Yeah.
Oklahoma 4-0.
Yeah. Right.
No gimme in Austin on Saturday for certain. Despite it being 16.5 right now in that game. All right.
Is this your favorite game of the day, Jeff? Right.
This is 2 teams in year 1 in out of FCS and into FBS. Jacksonville State, Sam Houston State. Oh man, Sam Houston's offense. Vinny, you want to have fun with numbers real quick? Fun with numbers so far for Sam Houston State. Here are the amount of points that Sam Houston State has scored in each of their first 3 games. 0, 3, 7.
Right.
That is 10 points in 3 games for a hearty 3.33333 basically to average on the year to begin.
Hence the 36.5 total on this game, my friend. Yes, I said it. 36.5. Yes, there it is. What would you do with that total?
So Jacksonville State, week 1 played that. Week 0. I know you don't want to call it week 0.
Please.
It was week 0.
Please.
That was a coaching malpractice game week 1. Where UTEP continually kept moving the ball, and then they would do something ridiculous, or Dimmel would make a bad decision, and they would turn the ball over on downs. Jacksonville State in that game, Vinny, averaged 4.3 yards a play. That's pretty mediocre. I'm not going to count the game, even though they're, first year up from FCS. Not going to look at the game against ETSU, but they scored 49 points and somehow averaged less than 5 yards a play, which is pretty hard to do in order to score that many points and be under 5 yards a play. Against Coastal Carolina, 5.4. All right, getting a little bit better. And then last week in a 21-0 win over Eastern Michigan, 5 yards a play. So this is a pretty bad offense with a defense that has done pretty well so far this year. I think that total's right. If anything, I look to the under.
Can they? You can go under 36.
If any hasn't moved, that total's not moved the whole week.
And again, that's a total that pros will look at more than the general public.
Well, the general public will bet it over, but probably right.
Probably.
I mean, so how can we not get 37 points in college?
They're going to look at it and go, Jacksonville State can go over by themselves, right? Just look at the numbers you just mentioned.
For what it's worth, I actually do like Sam Houston getting 7 tonight
at home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Getting a touchdown.
Yeah.
They got to cover one of the. You got to cover a game, right? You would hope.
The question is which one.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
that's in essence what you're betting on with that.
Last week, Sam Houston got throttled by the Houston Cougars, who are not a good Power 5 this year.
Not a good
I will say this, and just to change the subject this year, Vinny, and this very, very well have to do with your point on the transfer portal as well. I can't remember looking at so many teams in Power 5s that I say, wait a second, this team's not any good. This team's not any good. There are the There used to be in the past teams like, I would say, from about 35 to 55 that I would look at and say, you know what? That's still a pretty good football team, even though they may be deficient in one area or not. Now I look at about, I would say 40 to 60, push it down a little bit and be like, there is no difference between 40 and 60 anymore because all of these teams are pretty deficient at important areas of their team.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch, and you have to really keep an eye on it, that being the portal, Jeff, because, listen, the fact that players can move and be eligible right away that's the biggest effect of it. Right now, you've got a program that has, this 4 and 5 star, aspect, right?
Right.
But it's there. Okay. Well, when a guy is, recruited, that's the thing, and when kids come to me, and I don't, people may not know this, I do some work with high school kids that are looking to go to college and on athletic scholarships. I write letters of recommendation and things like that. I always tell them, listen, always remember this. Ask as many questions with your parents as possible, because in essence, every time a coach goes to a tournament or a national event, whatever, they're looking for your replacement. You're replacing somebody, and they're looking for your replacement. Well, now, when that comes up, maybe, you know what? It didn't work out for me here, so I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go get there. I mean, how many quarterbacks do we see with 4 different uniform kits in their closet?
At least
5, right?
Yeah.
You got guys that are playing in their 6th season, too. Now you add the COVID year is still there in some cases. So all of that said, you have to pay attention to it. But to your point, it's going to be interesting to see now as it starts to filter further down the road and the COVID extra goes away. But it bears watching for sure.
Oh, no, 100%. And again, it just going through this week, like, again, in the, like, just going for the Big 12, like Houston and Texas Tech play each other this week.
Yeah.
Texas Tech had a quarterback injury last week where Shao breaks his leg in the first half, and now they're on the kid Morton, who really didn't show much of anything last year.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, the other quarterback who was at Texas Tech last year is now the starting quarterback for Houston.
He's gone, and that's one of the things too. Chris Andrews and I had talked about this quite a bit. This is the biggest factor, really, why we put up our games of the year 2 months later this year.
Yeah,
because there's still people in the portal.
Yeah.
Right?
And people in the portal now.
I mean, let's face it. Alabama grabbed another quarterback after the spring game. It's unheard of, right? Until now.
By the way, we have some inactives and actives real quick
for tonight. There you go.
Christian Watson will be making his season debut for Green Bay. He
Wide
is
receiver, yes.
Aaron Jones, he is also back after that hamstring injury took him out the last 2 weeks. Jair Alexander, out. So that is the biggest one that we already didn't know. We already knew Bakhtiari wasn't going to play this week for Green Bay, but Jair Alexander out for the Packers tonight.
And Montgomery, I think, is active, so right for the David Montgomery is active for the Lions.
Green Bay,
right?
He is not on the inactives list, so he is active.
Okay. And that game is sitting with the Lions now. Just moved recently here at the South Point. 2.5.
So the hook is on.
The hook is there, buddy. And the total holding steady at 45. Lions, that's the highest they've been all week. Again, they opened as 1.5-point favorites. Initial play on the Packers went down to 1, but they've laid 1, 1.5, 2, and now 2. Lions, 2.5 here at South Point, total 45.
We're not going to get the 3, right? No way. No way.
I would not say no way.
No way? Hey,
there may be a way. Now, if it
gets to 3, I'm taking Green Bay. I'm just telling you that right now.
If it bets to 3, it will last less than our commercials.
That's 2 minutes, guys. You'll have less than 2 minutes in order to get your bet into 3 if it gets there.
Trust me. Be quick. How you're on your phone when you got to get your boarding pass when you want to get that boarding pass, right? and you right? You know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly.
You have to be quicker than that.
A time or two.
You have to be quicker than that.
Okay.
If it gets to 3 in this case.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I don't have a great feel for that, but if it somehow hits 3, I got to be quick enough.
Well, yeah, it's a play on the number, right?
A total play on the number.
And you look at, by the way, look at this week. What are there, 7 games on or around 3? This game.
This is
Jacksonville.
2.5. Jacksonville, Atlanta, 3. Miami, Buffalo, 3. Denver, Chicago, 3.
Broncos,
Cleveland,
3. Yeah.
Cleveland, 2.5 against Baltimore.
Got as high as 3 at one point.
Right. New Orleans now 3.5.
The Steelers open 3. They're 2.5. They'll get back to 3 at some point.
Cincinnati, Tennessee, 2.5.
There you go.
Then Seattle and the Giants have flipped favorites seemingly 4 or 5 times already this week.
Yeah, the interesting, right? The Seahawks opened on Monday night, 1.5. Multiple defensive injuries, but they had them last week as well. The big question here is Saquon Barkley, right? That game from 1.5 down to pick. So initially Giants money came in, and a little while before we came on the air today, Jeff, Seahawks drew money, and the game back to 1.
I know Barkley. If Barkley doesn't play, then obviously the Giants' offense a shell of what you would want it to be.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Even if Barkley plays, I don't get the love that the market had for the Giants. I know it's extra rest because they played Thursday, and now they're playing Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's Seattle making the
East Coast trip,
3,000-mile trip from Seattle to New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Seattle's just a better football team.
Yeah,
they just are.
They are. Injuries again, but listen. Last week they took care of it. But again, they played. They played against Carolina, who's in a rebuild, right? So, it's basically a pick'em game. So, I don't know, but the Barkley status is going to impact that number.
Oh, 100%.
Just even from a perception standpoint. Right?
All right, since we're talking about non-quarterbacks here, Vinny, put you on the spot.
Okay.
What non-quarterback means the most to the point spread?
Christian McCaffrey.
McCaffrey's number 1.
I would say from a running back perspective.
From a running back perspective,
I think Tyreek Hill. You could make a case for Tyreek Hill, although, gosh, there's so many weapons on that team.
After what we saw in Week 1, you can make the case for Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce, for sure. But again, that was coupled with Smith, right? Defensive lineman.
Chris Jones.
But yeah, McCaffrey's a big one. Tyreek Hill, Kelce, they're all right there. Now, are they quarterback differential? No. Quarterback touches every offensive possession for the most part, unless there's a wild.
Well, I would imagine that's what. Yeah. If, let's say, for Tyreek Hill, it's a point and a half.
You know what, too, Jeff? I'm not going to marry it to a number because it also depends on the spot. And what's the spot? Well, who's the opponent?
Well, if it was this week against Buffalo, it'd mean a lot more than it would
absolutely. If it's Buffalo, compared to Carolina, with all due respect, it's just a matter of
Panther fans.
The quality. Well, I'm sure they are, but I'm also being realistic. They might think it's more. You might find Panther fans the same. Vinny, you're being generous.
Yeah. No.
Right.
I know. I don't disagree there. Vinny, before we go today, I do want to bring up the Bad Bowl, real quick. Denver and Chicago. They're both 0-3. The Bears are so bad that they are home against a team that is also 0-3, a team that gave up 70 last week.
Yeah.
And lost at home to 2 teams that I think we can say, even though the Commanders are 2-1, 2 bottom third NFL teams in Washington and the Raiders. And now they are at home against the Broncos, and Denver is favored at Soldier Field this week by 3.
Broncos 3.5 on the opener Sunday night.
Oh, they bet the Bears.
They took the 3.5 again, a play on the number, and they laid it. So it's a game where that game's going to toggle back and forth. By the way,
please.
So what's the difference between this 0-3 bowl to the one right above it, the Vikings and the Panthers?
Well, the difference.
I'll tell you.
Okay, go ahead.
Just the perception, the Broncos and the Bears, the expectations, not only by the fan bases, but I think within the organizations was so much higher than what they've produced so far. And there's disharmony within these teams, in these locker rooms. I mean, let's face it. Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, they're not on the same page, in my opinion. The Bears, it's been a soap opera, particularly in the last 10 days. So I think, the Vikings transitioning, although I think it's a bit of a surprise that they're winless by this point, and the Panthers, again, is a rebuild. So the difference is that the perception, not only from our side of the counter, we because we're reacting to the people, the way they were betting in these teams in the offseason, right? In terms of not only futures, but in terms of week one, regular season wins, things like that. So I think from that's the biggest difference in the two.
Well, and also too, like Minnesota and Carolina. Let's take Minnesota for example. Minnesota just has done the hard regress quickly, where they've lost all three of their games by one score. So they're just doing the exact opposite of what they did last year.
Last year they were 7-0 in those games,
11.
Right? 11-0.
Yeah, I mean they were undefeated in one-score games last year.
They had that many? 11? Wow.
That's why their point differential was so bad. But
paid for it in the playoffs.
And then of course lose a one-score game in the playoffs to the Giants. And Carolina, like you said, you know what? I thought they had a little bit of hope. They're in a bad division. They have a good defense, but Young's not ready to play. That's all that is. And it looks like he is going to play this week.
I believe he is. He's practicing. He's probable. Yeah.
So, and you mentioned it. I didn't buy the Bears hype going into the year. It is very hard in this league to go from 3 wins to 8, which is what if you were betting the over on the Bears that you needed to get.
Bet the over. Bet them to win the division.
Sure.
There was a lot of love.
I thought they were the 4th choice in the division the whole summer, and that is proving to be very much right.
You are looking.
And at Denver?
Very prophetic.
And for Denver, I mean, I had no idea what to expect this year. I did not expect this, though. I did not expect the bottom to fall out in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's. I think it's surprised a lot of folks because they were getting bet the same way, right? By everybody thought that Sean Payton was going to really make a difference. And but he didn't help himself either.
He opened his mouth.
Just the whole approach and the criticism of a colleague like that openly, well, it's kind of paying for it now.
Vinny, before we go, last update on tonight. Detroit, currently 2.5-point favorites in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. If this closes with Detroit being the favorite, which they will, it'll be the first time they've been favored at Lambeau since 1986.
Yeah, again, before you were born. I know, you mentioned.
I wonder if that was before the Mets beat the Red Sox in the World Series or not during that year. I'll have to look that up.
Probably. It was right around that time, right? Yeah. No, I don't know. That was early on, right, in that Game 7. That goes to Casey Stengel.
The 1986 Lions were favored. It was October 12th.
It was right in the middle.
So right in the middle of the run that year in '86.
No autumn baseball in New York this year, buddy.
Yeah, the worst. Well,
we'll talk baseball, by the way.
Monday. We'll have a full preview.
Tuesday starts the baseball playoffs, which is a great time, by the way. One of the best times of year for baseball because you got games all day.
Yes,
and it's nice, a lot of fun.
The bettors behind us will be very happy.
Yes,
all day next Tuesday.
Yep,
and Wednesday and possibly Thursday, depending on how many games make it to Thursday. That's all the time we have. He's Vinny Magliulo. I'm Jeff Parles. This has been Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. We are back tomorrow, 2:00 Pacific. New start time tomorrow on Friday.
2 to 4.
2 to 4 Pacific. Vinny will be here. Chris will be here. Jimmy will make an appearance.
Oh,
we know Jimmy will make an appearance and wander across the set as he makes his way up.
It's an open set for
Mr. Jimmy.
For one of the 4.
Absolutely. He's Vinny. I'm Jeff. We'll see you next time. Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio.